Have you ever stopped to wonder why some people seem to talk over you, overlook you, or treat your presence as if it barely registers? Why your thoughts are interrupted, your effort forgotten, your sensitivity turned into a joke? Maybe you're the one who is always there for everyone else, the one who agrees even when tired, who stays quiet to avoid tension, who forgives quickly just to keep the peace. And yet what comes back often feels like indifference or silence. What hurts most is not a single moment of disrespect, but the quiet realization beneath it, the sense that somewhere along the way you stopped being valued and you don't know how to change it. So you keep trying, keep being patient, helpful, understanding, hoping that one day people will finally see your worth. But that moment never seems to arrive. Carl Jung once wrote that the most frightening thing is to accept oneself completely. Perhaps that is why this pattern holds so tightly, because real self-respect asks something difficult. It asks you to look inward, honestly, and admit that in some way you have participated in the very cycle that hurts you, that when you overlook yourself, others often follow the same script. This is not about blaming you, and it is not about offering empty comfort. It is about understanding the deeper roots of why this keeps happening, because the answers are often closer than we want to admit. If you are tired of feeling dismissed by friends, family, partners, or colleagues, then it may be time to examine the emotional patterns beneath the surface, the ones that quietly shape every interaction. The world around you is not as random as it appears. In many ways, it reflects the way you stand in it, or sometimes the way you shrink. When you stay silent in moments that matter, when you tolerate what diminishes you, you're sending a message without speaking. This is what I accept. This is what I believe I deserve. Jung believed that much of what we encounter outside mirrors what remains unresolved within. The dismissals, the subtle wounds, the recurring sense of being unseen can often echo beliefs buried deep in the unconscious. If part of you doubts your own value, that uncertainty can shape the way others respond, not because you intend it, but because it leaks into posture, voice, and choice. For many people, these patterns began early. Perhaps you learned that being agreeable kept you safe, that love depended on compliance, that expressing anger or refusal led to rejection. Those lessons do not disappear with age. They become silent programs, guiding reactions long after the original circumstances are gone. And so you may find yourself still trying to earn approval, still measuring your worth by how others respond, still bending in ways that leave you feeling smaller each time. Until these beliefs are brought into awareness, the pattern repeats, changing faces but not substance, because it lives within, not outside. Jung warned that what remains unconscious tends to shape our lives in ways that feel like fate. Until you examine how you see yourself, you may keep encountering situations that confirm that same image, reinforcing the very invisibility you wish to escape. There is a way to change this, but it begins with a question few people dare to ask themselves, a question that reaches deeper than comfort allows. Why are you still trying to prove that you are enough? For much of your life, you may have been trying to demonstrate that you are worthy, trying to be the reliable one, the understanding one, the person who never disappoints. You adjust yourself to meet expectations, soften your opinions to avoid friction, and stretch your limits so others remain comfortable. And in return, what arrives is often approval that fades quickly, respect that never fully takes root. There is a hidden danger in living this way. When your identity becomes tied to pleasing others, you slowly lose contact with who you are beneath the roles you perform. Jung spoke about the persona, the social mask each of us wears to function in the world. That mask has a purpose, but when it becomes the whole face, the person underneath begins to disappear. The desire to belong is deeply human, and there is nothing wrong with wanting acceptance. The difficulty begins when acceptance becomes the standard by which you measure your value. In that state, praise feels like oxygen and criticism feels like suffocation, and your sense of self rises and falls with every reaction around you. You may begin to work harder, give more, and push yourself to be indispensable, believing that if you are useful enough, flawless enough, people will finally recognize you. But the quiet truth is this: the more desperately you try to prove your worth, the more you reveal that you doubt it yourself, and that doubt shapes how others respond, often without a word being spoken. People who carry a grounded sense of self rarely feel the need to chase attention or approval. They do not exhaust themselves trying to earn basic respect. They understand their limits, they honor their time, and they accept that not everyone will like them. Discomfort does not frighten them as much as abandoning their own integrity. Reaching that place requires letting go of a deeply rooted belief, the idea that respect must be earned through sacrifice. In reality, what must be rebuilt first is the respect you hold for yourself. The quiet recognition that your needs and boundaries matter simply because you exist. When that foundation begins to form, the opinions of others lose their power to define you. Their reactions become information, not verdicts. But arriving there requires a decision, and that decision often begins with something that seems small, yet feels incredibly difficult. It begins the moment you learn to say no. Many people grow up believing that kindness means never disagreeing, that love means giving endlessly, that setting limits makes you selfish or cold. So when something bothers you, you push it down. When someone oversteps, you tell yourself it is not worth the tension. When you feel hurt, you forgive quickly, sometimes before the other person even recognizes what they have done. On the surface, this can look like patience or emotional maturity. But over time, something else is happening beneath it. Each silence, each concession, each moment of swallowing your truth chips away at your sense of self until you begin to feel like a background character in your own life. The reality is simple, though not always comfortable. People tend to take cues from what you allow. Respect is not created through pleading or proving. It emerges when your boundaries are clear and steady. This does not require anger or hostility, but it does require firmness, the kind that leaves no confusion about where you stand. And that firmness often begins with one word that many people struggle to use: no. Saying no is not rejection, it is definition. It tells the world and reminds you that your time, energy, and well-being have value. It signals that there are lines that cannot be crossed, not because you wish to hurt others, but because you are no longer willing to hurt yourself. Yet the first times you do this, guilt may appear almost immediately. If someone is used to your constant agreement, your refusal may feel uncomfortable, even wrong. Part of you may want to retreat, to return to the familiar role of accommodating and agreeable. That pull is powerful because it is tied to habits formed over many years. Jung described the path of becoming oneself as a process that inevitably involves confrontation, not only with others, but with the parts of ourselves that learn to survive by always yielding. That version of you once served a purpose, perhaps protecting you or helping you belong, but it may now be holding you in a place that no longer fits who you are becoming. Each time you refuse what drains you, each time you step back from what diminishes you, you reclaim a small piece of your authority. At first, the change may feel fragile, almost uncertain, but slowly it strengthens. You begin to hear your own voice again, not as an echo of others' expectations, but as something clear and steady. And as this voice returns, another question begins to emerge, one that reaches deeper than habits or boundaries. What if the greatest obstacle to standing your ground is not outside you at all, but hidden in the parts of yourself you have never fully faced? Why do you remain in situations that clearly wear you down? Why stay in friendships that leave you feeling small, in workplaces where your voice fades, in relationships where you must hide parts of yourself just to keep the connection? Why allow interruptions, dismissive remarks, or subtle disrespect to pass without response, even when something inside you tightens and protests? The answer is not only in circumstances or past experiences. Often it lies in what Jung called the shadow, the parts of yourself that were pushed aside because they seemed unacceptable. Emotions like anger, assertiveness, or the instinct to defend your own space may have been discouraged early in life. When a child learns that saying no brings punishment or rejection, submission becomes a strategy for safety. Over time, a person can become skilled at being agreeable, polite, and accommodating, while the strength that once pushed back quietly retreats underground. Yet what is suppressed does not vanish. It gathers energy in silence, shaping reactions in ways that are difficult to see. That buried part of you is often what hesitates when you need to speak, what tightens your throat when you feel the urge to object, what convinces you to remain quiet even as resentment builds. It is not weakness, it is a habit of self-protection that has outlived its purpose. Think about the moments when you gave more than you could afford, hoping for appreciation that never came, or the times someone crossed a line and you told yourself it was better to let it go. Outwardly, you kept the peace. Inwardly, something felt diminished, as if a piece of you had stepped aside again. Silence can sometimes be wisdom, but it can also be surrender disguised as patience. When feelings like anger or indignation are denied completely, they do not disappear. They transform into passivity, anxiety, or quiet frustration. What you refuse to acknowledge in yourself often ends up directing your choices from behind the scenes. As long as these hidden parts remain unexamined, the same patterns tend to repeat. Different faces, different places, yet the same uneasy feeling of being overlooked or taken for granted. The external story changes, but the inner script remains the same. There is, however, another path. It requires the courage to look at what you once rejected within yourself, to recognize that the capacity to say no, to feel anger, to protect your boundaries is not something dark or destructive, but part of being whole. And before you can ask the world to treat you with dignity, you must first reclaim the strength that has been waiting quietly within you all along. Respect does not appear suddenly, and it does not grow from intentions alone. It is built through repeated, deliberate actions, small choices made day after day that gradually reshape how you see yourself and how others respond to you. One of the first tools is learning to treat discomfort as a signal rather than something to ignore. When a situation leaves you uneasy, pause for a moment instead of explaining it away. Ask yourself, if I truly valued my own well-being, what would I do right now? Sometimes the answer may be to step back, to decline, or simply to remain silent rather than agreeing out of habit. That quiet awareness is often the beginning of change. Another step is letting go of the urge to justify every decision. Long explanations often come from a hidden fear of disapproval, as if your boundaries need permission to exist. In many cases, a simple, calm response is enough. Not everything requires defense. Clarity, delivered without apology, carries its own strength. It also helps to look honestly at how you spend your time. If every hour is devoted to obligations and none to yourself, the message becomes clear, even to your own mind, that your needs come last. Setting aside time for rest, reflection, or anything that restores your energy is not indulgence. It is maintenance of your inner balance. When disrespect does occur, there is a middle path between silence and outburst. Instead of reacting instantly, take a breath, gather your words, and respond with steadiness. A clear statement spoken without hostility often carries more weight than either anger or withdrawal. Calm firmness teaches others how you expect to be treated. And finally, consider the people around you. Some relationships nourish you, others quietly drain you. Pay attention to who listens, who supports, and who only appears when they need something. Creating distance from those who diminish you is not cruelty. It is a form of self-preservation. Those who truly value you will not disappear because you respect yourself. None of these steps are complicated in themselves. What makes them difficult is the emotional pattern that has formed over years, the reflex to please, to avoid tension, to keep harmony at any cost. Changing that pattern takes patience, repetition, and a willingness to feel uncomfortable at times. Yet as these small acts accumulate, something shifts. The more consistently you honor your own boundaries, the less natural it feels to tolerate what once seemed unavoidable. And as this change deepens, one final obstacle often rises into view: the fear that standing firm might leave you alone. At some point, there comes a moment when blaming others no longer explains what keeps repeating. Waiting for people to change, hoping they will finally notice your effort or recognize your worth, begins to feel like standing still while time moves on. The harder truth is that the world often responds to the position you take within it, not the one you wish others would see. You may long to be heard, yet silence yourself when it matters most. You may want to be valued, yet accept what barely meets your needs. You may hope to be a priority while placing yourself last again and again. And then the question arises, why does nothing change? Jung once observed that until the unconscious becomes conscious, it shapes our lives in ways that feel like destiny. The cycles you experience, the relationships that echo the same patterns, the familiar sense of being overlooked may not be accidents at all, but reflections of beliefs and habits that have never been examined. This does not mean becoming hardened or distant. Respect does not require you to lose warmth or compassion. It simply asks that you stop trading your authenticity for approval, that you stop shrinking yourself to fit environments that leave no room for who you really are. One of the most difficult steps is making peace with the possibility of being alone at times. Not loneliness in the painful sense, but the quiet strength of being comfortable in your own company, knowing that your value does not depend on constant validation. When you reach that place, relationships become choices rather than necessities. From there, each moment of disrespect presents a decision. You can remain silent and allow the old pattern to continue, or you can speak calmly and clearly and begin writing a different story. It does not require anger or confrontation, only honesty and the willingness to stand where you truly are. When self-respect takes root, something subtle but powerful changes. Your tone, your posture, even the way you look at the world begins to shift. And people notice often without knowing why, because the way you carry yourself quietly communicates what you accept and what you do not. Respect, in the end, is not something you chase. It grows from within, and when it is firmly there, it no longer needs to be demanded. If some part of this message has stirred something in you, if it touched a thought or a feeling you usually push aside, then perhaps that is a sign. Change often begins quietly, with a single moment of recognition, a moment when you decide that continuing in the same way is no longer acceptable. Choosing to respect yourself does not happen in one dramatic step. It begins with a decision, repeated in small ways every day, in the conversations where you speak honestly, in the boundaries you keep, in the time you allow yourself to rest and to breathe. Each of those choices is a quiet declaration that your life, your energy, and your voice matter. And once that declaration becomes real to you, something shifts. You stop searching so desperately for permission to exist as you are. You stop measuring your worth by how loudly others applaud or how quickly they approve. You begin to stand in your own presence with a steadiness that no one else can give or take away. This path is not always comfortable, but it is deeply freeing. Because the more you reconnect with yourself, the less power the old patterns hold, and the more space there is for relationships that are built on mutual respect rather than silent sacrifice. So take a moment, quietly, and ask yourself a simple question. From this point forward, what would it mean to truly stand on your own side? If these words made you pause, if they brought into the open something you have felt for a long time but rarely named, then let that awareness stay with you. Real change often begins in moments exactly like this, when you recognize a truth you can no longer ignore. Make a quiet commitment to yourself, not a dramatic promise, but a steady one. A commitment to listen to your own voice, to notice when something feels wrong, and to honor that feeling instead of pushing it aside. That single decision, repeated over time, can reshape an entire life. And remember, this is not about becoming perfect or unshakable. It is about becoming honest with yourself, patient with your growth, and strong enough to stand by your own worth, even when no one else is watching. Take that step forward, slowly but deliberately. The path back to yourself is still there, and it begins the moment you decide to walk it. From this moment on, Every situation that challenges your boundaries becomes an opportunity to remain where you have always been, or to respond differently, to speak with calm clarity, to act in a way that reflects the respect you are learning to give yourself. You do not need to transform overnight. You only need to begin, and to keep beginning, again and again, until this new way of standing in the world feels natural, until your voice no longer trembles when you use it, until your presence no longer feels invisible to you. If this message resonated with you, hold on to that feeling. Let it remind you that change is possible and that the relationship you have with yourself shapes every other relationship in your life. Go deeper, stay honest with yourself, and continue moving forward. The person you are becoming is already taking shape, one choice at a time. If you have listened this far, take a quiet moment and acknowledge that willingness to reflect. Because facing yourself honestly is never easy, yet it is the beginning of every meaningful change. And if you want this to be more than just a passing thought, let it become an intention. Not a loud declaration for others, but a simple, private choice. To respect yourself a little more today than you did yesterday, and a little more tomorrow than today. Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep returning to yourself. The deeper you go, the clearer your path becomes, and the stronger your presence feels in every part of your life. Remember, nothing changes all at once. Growth is quiet, often invisible at first, like roots forming beneath the surface long before anything breaks through the ground. What matters is not speed, but consistency. The steady choice to remain aware, to remain honest, and to remain aligned with what you know is true. So as you move forward, carry this with you. The respect you seek does not begin in the eyes of others. It begins in the way you speak to yourself, the way you treat your own time, and the way you respond when something inside you says, "This is not right." Stay with that voice. Let it guide you. And step by step, you will find yourself standing in a life that feels more real, more grounded, and unmistakably your own. As you continue on this path, be patient with yourself. Some days you will feel strong and clear. Other days the old habits will return. And that is part of the process. What matters is that you notice, that you return to awareness, and that you keep choosing yourself again and again. Over time, those choices reshape the way you live. Your voice becomes steadier, your presence more grounded, your relationships more honest. And little by little, you stop feeling like someone who must fight to be seen, because you are no longer invisible to yourself. Keep going. Keep looking inward with courage, and keep building a life where respect is not something you wait for, but something you carry with you, quietly and unmistakably, wherever you go.